Why do you bother scribbling these thoughts down? Maybe you thought this was supposed to be a hobby, but it's not. You took this writing business as seriously as a profession, and still you make no money from it. A completely fruitless endeavour. Not necessarily for the typewriter technician that services your machine, as they make a living out of it. Good for them. If you were writing on a computer's keyboard though, and putting said technician out of work, then the entire exercise would absolutely be without point. You've even learnt how to touch type. What's that gotten you so far? Maybe a clerical job, sure. I suppose that's better than nothing, but it's certainly worse than what you'd hope for. Recognition. As in just that of you putting figurative pen to paper, placing your fingers on the keys. Instead, your writing seems to be worth less to people than a blank page. At least in something which is as yet blank, there exists the possibility of, not necessarily perfection, but mediocrity. By putting yourself in the process though, between that figurative paper and pen, you only seem to preclude even that. Your weapon of choice has been your typewriter. The keys their bullets, with each keystroke a pull of the trigger. Perfection is the target and lazy writing the last thing you're aiming for. You take mental aim, release the hammer, strike the pen, and hopefully the bullseye of good writing is met with what you punch out. You can't settle, won't settle, never settling for less but wanting more, more, more. Once you begin, from the words you write you can expect one of two realities. The first, and most unlikely, is where your world is met with the recognition you want, and when it's that is granted to you, you'll transition to an even greater one, this time for being no less than on top of the literary world. The second, and far more likely reality, is to head in the other direction, in escaping the 9 to 5 that supports your many writing-filled weekends by spending them drinking and dining with the work colleagues, friends, and other associates who acquiesce enough to say they're willing to read what you wrote last week, over the restaurant stereo, above the other patrons, and across the teetering table supporting your cheap rice wine and wontons. And after each diner-turned-critic downs a shot before reading the next paragraph of yours, each may comment with something like, "The body's too heavy, the finish isn't what I expected, it's just not for me, there's not enough substance," or "it's just not strong enough." But by the time you're able to work out whether these jokers you're out with are commenting on what you wrote, or discussing the table's 6th bottle of rice wine instead, you won't even mind them messing around with you as you'll laugh and laugh and laugh. Without joking though, you can honestly say that you've had to pay people to read your work, so as it stands your writing is only worth as much as you can afford to pay people to read it. In that case, you writing a character is wasting another cent, writing a sentence is wasting several cents, a paragraph common sense, and anything more than that on your meagre wage is on credit you can't afford. To make matters worse, you're too afraid to ask someone to read more, as the only thing worse than employing someone to read your work is having them ask for a raise after the first few pages. When you leave the restaurant, if restaurant is what you can call the hole in the wall they picked this time, maybe someone comments on the work they were gracious enough to take a look at pro bono, but only if you can call what you write work too. Maybe they read enough of it to spark some interest from others, or from yourself, as you're always your harshest critic, but with good reason. This is the first time others have read your work for free, and so you wrote it to be your best. You want an opinion, but, more than anything, you want honesty, not compassion if they perceive it a failure. You'd rather honest criticism than false praise. You want the truth, not lies. You don't want a made-up opinion on your authentic piece of work. You want an authentic opinion on a made-up piece of work. That is, if you're writing fiction and it is by definition made up. If writing poetry or lyrics instead, then the best you can hope for is to make it through the night regardless of the intensely aggressive ribbing the readers provide, before they get serious about helping you out with their own thoughts on your thoughts that they see typed out in front of them. You're nervous. Nothing brings you more pain than the different combination of characters you write out over and over again. They're the reason for a severe deficit in your personal and professional life, as any free time you get you're not using to study yourself out of the dead-end job you do to support the struggle that is writing, because that time is spent doing just that, writing. You have an illness that heals the same as it hurts. The diagnosis? Writer. The symptoms? Writing. The treatment? See symptoms. And yet, having given yourself the choice of writing or not, you continue to. You used to write for reasons that completely eluded you. Not that you can't now think of the reasons you wrote, like fame, wealth, nice car, and much, much more, but that all those reasons eluded both you and your writing. Now, you write because even if unrealised, the possibilities of a blank sheet of paper holds more potential to you than any time spent studying for a better salary. More potential than the dates that would count towards a relationship. More potential than getting out there for the sake of forming friendships. You choose to write because at the same time it chains your hands to whatever writing tool you've chosen, whether a typewriter or any other tool, it also frees your mind. You write because you believe no major undertaking of study is required to write, and maybe not even to write well. You suppose it was your laziness that had you choose this form of expression over something that required focused learning, like sculpture or songwriting, whereas writing, or at least your kind of writing, does not require the application of previous learning. You write because you like not necessarily what you write, but what you're writing about, and the form in which that takes, whether prose or poems and everything between. So you end up in the cheapest downtown bar you can afford, where the barman asks you what you want next. There's only two things you want: a quarter of a whiskey tumbler filled with Irish, and an opinion on your writing from those you're out with, the same as how you're asking the barman to pour your drink. You want it straight, no twists, no dilution, and especially not watered down. The barman asks if the ladies you're drunk enough to be ordering imitation champagne for at the other end of the bar want the remainder of their bottle on ice. No ice. No ice to put the champagne on, as well as their opinions for that matter. They're going to drink, they're going to read, and you're going to get an honest opinion out of someone tonight, whether it takes everyone's livers out or not. Maybe you write because though your work may affect no one, or one person, or 1,000, or more, it will always affect you, for better or worse. See, there's thoughts had and thoughts gained. The former is in your head. The latter is once you've hammered it out, rethought, rewritten, then reworded what you thought in the first place. This is where your opinions change, without any outside influence. You discover a new way of looking at things through what's written in front of you, sometimes doing a full 180-degree spin in perspective. It's the same kind of spin that one of your night owl pack imitates under a streetlight, as you're slurring your way through this explanation of why you persist, as you stumble home, or at least to someone else's. And while slagging off the champagne ladies who never read your work, you can take pride amongst the remaining stragglers, as the bottle you're all sharing does the rounds between your hands, and you bring up quicker than the bottle to your lips the one question you've all answered tonight, that who wants to be on top of the literary world when you can be under its weight instead? No muscle ever developed in atrophy, no story ever came from a vacuum. So, for now, don't feel bad in not achieving anything, at least not yet. Happy and content, pass out with whoever remains once the key is finally turned in the lock of one of your homes, wondering the one and only thing you should. That who, in their right mind, would want to be on top of the literary world anyway, when you can get out of your mind, awake to remember what you can of it, slink away somewhere, and spend the next however long scribbling about your writing on Wontons, whatever the outcome. Certainly not you, not for now. And so, it is in your effort to find your pants and keys the next morning that you will find your voice too, and with any luck, sooner or later, so will an audience. And if not, you'll always have, well, not necessarily money, fame, good fortune, sex or love, but a whole lot of sentences and good company instead. But if you started for the right reasons and were honest as to your goals, you know that in terms of continuing, that's less than what you desired, but more than what you need. And so, you still scribble.